All right, good evening, everybody. We're so glad you joined us. My name's Leon Silver, and I'll be the moderator for the debate tonight. This forum is sponsored by Arizona State University and the Citizens Clean Election Commission. Arizona State University is a nonpartisan organization. That is, they never support or oppose any candidate or any political party. For this reason, the Clean Elections Commission has chosen ASU to conduct its candidate forum in Legislative District 26. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure which was passed by Arizona voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full public financing for qualified candidates who illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their district. They must also adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups, and they agree to participate in these forums. This election cycle, the Citizens Clean Elections Commission has also invited traditional campaigning candidates to participate. Now, if you hold up your cards, one of our volunteers will pick up any question that you want to ask over here, and if you need more cards, just put up your hand and we'll bring them to you. We screen the questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications or speeches or personal attacks on the candidates. And there is an independent timer who will see that all the candidates have equal time for answers to questions and will tell them when their time is up. Now, we ask that you all remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair, uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. This means no applause, outbursts, or cheers, except that you can all go wild when we introduce them. This is also important as post-captioning services will be made available after the debate for those individuals that are hard of hearing. For this reason, I will refer to each candidate by their full name prior to each question and ask that candidates speak clearly into their microphone, or at least in the direction of their microphone, unlike I just did. Also, before we get started, we ask everyone to please turn off or silence any mobile phones or other electronic devices you may have with you. No selfies from the podium up here. Our format this evening will be, sooner or later, I'll stop talking, and then we'll do opening statements for 3 minutes each. We'll be answering questions that the audience has provided, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question. And then we'll have 3 minutes for closing statements. The candidates this evening running for Senate are Edward Ablesser, a Democrat and a clean elections candidate, and Dale Eames, with no party affiliation. The candidates this evening running for the House of Representatives are Juan Mendez, a Democrat and a clean elections candidate, James Roy, a Republican and a clean elections candidate, Andrew Sherwood, a Democrat and clean elections candidate, and Chris Will, a Libertarian. The order in which the candidates will speak is determined alphabetically by last name and will progress from that starting point. The closing will be in the reverse order. So, Edward Ablesser, will you please give us your opening remarks?
Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Clean Elections Commission, for hosting this, and everyone for attending. Thank you, candidates, as well, for being here. I have the luck of always going first my entire life. AB has either been a plague or a benefit, and so anyhow, I'm Ed Ablesser, and I have been the state senator for the past 2 years, 3 years total service. I've served as a state representative for this district, going on 6 years as well, so it's a collective 9 years of service in the state legislature. Full-time job, I'm a mental health counselor. I work in homes with families, children, marriages, trying to help people who are needing special assistance, whether it's behavioral or emotional. I also teach sometimes at the university. I got my doctorate in justice and social inquiry here at Arizona State University, as long as my master's, which is what I do for full time for my profession. My family and I live here in Tempe. I have a little boy, a 9-month-old boy, and a 3-year-old girl, and my wife, and we have lived here since graduating, since getting married. I've decided to run for Arizona State Senate another term primarily because of the success we've had this past year, this past 2 years. I worked with Governor Brewer and many Republicans and Democrats on a very holistic, healthy budget that restored funding to schools, that restored Medicaid expansion, that brought our seniors, brought our low income, brought our individuals dealing with severe emotional and physical disabilities back into the fold to provide services that they desperately need. And that was exciting. That was holistic for this community, that we can finally get something positive in this state. And it was great to be in the center of that, working with the governor's office. And I look to do that for the upcoming 2 years, advancing Tempe and advancing the state in the right direction. Thank you.
Dale Eames.
Yes, my name is Dale Eames, and I am a father of two. I've been married to my wife, Raina, for 10 years. I'm an independent. I'm not associated with any party. And I decided to run because I felt like my parents never got involved in politics. I felt like both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party tend to fight amongst each other, and we don't get certain solutions done. And that Arizona has been going in some of the wrong directions when it comes to financing and other things. Schools have been hurt tremendously in the past. And if I didn't run, I decided at the last minute, then I wouldn't have a choice at the ballot. There was no one else wanting to run. And I'm a real estate broker. There are laws in real estate that are oppressive. And there are many laws out there that keep creating every year. And every law that gets put onto the books chips away at our freedom, one law at a time. And I think that if we can free up some of our liberties by getting rid of overbearing laws, that is something that I would really like to do and accomplish. And I thank you.
Juan Mendez.
Hello, everyone. I'm really impressed with the attendance. I feel like there's some people here I do not recognize, so that is great. My name is Juan Mendez. I am your state representative. I've been doing that for 2 years, and I'm running for re-election to address and put an end to the political and economic inequalities that so many of us work so hard underneath to provide a better environment for our families and our future. Since I went to college here, while going to college here and since graduating, I've committed myself to building up community. I feel like it is the best place for me to put my effort in for us to reap benefits for everybody. And so I've enjoyed doing that. But today, under our leadership, our incomes have been stagnating, our inequality is deepening, and it is harder and harder every day to pull ourselves out of poverty, let alone into the middle class. And so I am running for re-election to improve the quality of the existing jobs that we already have and to help us attract better quality jobs for Arizona. Our jobs need to provide a living wage, benefits, and security. Without those aspects to a job, there is no other way to the middle class. That is what the middle class, that is how the middle class gets to the middle class, with good quality jobs. And so what we can do in Arizona to accelerate the growth of those kinds of quality jobs is by investing in the graduation and attraction of high-skilled workers. I'm going to be bringing them up a lot because I believe they are a job multiplier. They aren't just good for the economy because they themselves are paid higher wages. They're good for the economy because they affect the environment of jobs around us, the quality of jobs, the productivity of jobs. And so to pull us out of the economic situation we are in today, I want to be doubling down on the amount of college-educated people we produce in our community. Along with education, let's see, a little bit more about myself. Before I was running for office, I managed my own nonprofit program called Community Voicemail. I worked for over 4 years connecting low-income, working poor, and homeless across our valley to programs, housing, employment, healthcare, and hope. I've worked on and served at my local Boys and Girls Club, and I was on the Phoenix Human Services Commission and the Tempe Community Council, and I also graduated from Tempe Leadership. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I have been trying to lead and convene our community before running for office, and I'm excited to be doing this with you guys together afterwards. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from James Roy.
My name is James Roy, and first I want to thank the Citizens Clean Election Commission for sponsoring this debate. And I also want to thank all of you for being here. Although your being here adds to my nervousness. This is my first time running. I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular guy, a citizen, and I'm running because our district needs effective representation. Because right now, both our representatives and our senator, they're all Democrat in a legislature that is overwhelmingly Republican. And regardless of your political affiliation, that's just not good for your district. And so I'm running to get the voice of the district into the legislature. I believe that it is our responsibility to be active in our government. This is a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And it is our responsibility and our duty to be active, understand what is going on in our communities, in our state, and take an active role. And so that's why I'm running, and I appreciate your vote.
Andrew Sherwood.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be back here at ASU. I'm a former Sun Devil myself, so it's like coming home every 2 years to have these debates. I love it. Thank you to Clean Elections for hosting this debate. Thank you to ASU for having us, and thank you all in attendance and for watching. I'm running for re-election right now for the State House of Representatives because there's a lot more work that needs to be done. I got involved in politics in 2006, and this is some of the most meaningful work that I've ever done. It's the hardest job that I've ever loved. I've been elected to the state legislature now for the last 2 years, and let me tell you how much I enjoy this work. I love going to work every day. I've also worked in the private sector. I've been a small business owner, and I've been an executive for a construction company, and it always disappoints me to find out how few people have started their own businesses, have U.S. copyrights, have U.S. patents. I want people to help themselves. And one of the things that we can do here in the great state of Arizona in government is help people empower themselves. Being an elected official is not just what you do with policy in the legislature. It's also about a lifestyle. I choose to go out and work with everybody, men and women from all political parties. I choose to go to almost every event that I've ever been invited to. I choose to do guest speaking. I've helped sponsor flights to get World War II veterans back to their memorial in Washington, D.C. I helped bring NASA astronauts here to ASU through Destination Space Station. I've helped I've done constitutional debate classes with high school kids, and I go to Eagle Scout ceremonies. I really like this work, but there's more work to be done. And so that's what this is about. This is a choice on how we move Arizona forward. And we are making progress. Make no mistake about that. In the last 2 years, we've seen some serious legislation. And it's interesting to me that people are starting to know these things by name. The bad bills, to me, are bills like SB 1070 and SB 1062, and I oppose those bills. They're bad public policy, but they're also bad for the perception of Arizona. What we want is more people, more men and women to come to our great state. And so I want to work to make sure that the bad bills stay away and that good policy, good legislation moves forward. Unfortunately, you're not going to hear about that often enough. It's not a news story if you don't hit the iceberg, right? That's the way it was supposed to be. And so a lot of the small things that we do, folks don't hear about. But the good things that you have heard about, it is true that we put some money into education. Now we need to put more money into education. It is true that we passed the expansion of Medicaid. That was a very big deal, and that's a very big victory. And two of my colleagues at this bench helped us do that tonight. So right now, as we move forward, we're asking for your vote for re-election. My name is Andrew Sherwood. It is a pleasure to be here and introduce myself to you all tonight, and I thank you for your consideration.
And finally, let's hear from Chris Will.
Hi, I'm Chris Will. Thanks for having me here. It's wonderful to be here again. I was here 2 years ago when I was running against both Juan and Andrew. I'm the Libertarian candidate. in District 26. I was born in Phoenix, grew up in Scottsdale, raised my kids in Mesa. As when I lived in Scottsdale, it was a small town that nobody'd ever heard of, so it's been a while. I've been a librarian, a mom. I was a small business owner with my husband as a potter. After the divorce, I became I sold ammunition reloading machines for a while. And then I was a credit analyst. And then the economy happened, and now I'm a meat librarian at Walmart. So I've seen a lot of, I've got quite a broad background. And so I can represent most of the people in my district. I hope to help preserve personal liberties, build community, improve education. The cool thing about education, in a lot of ways, it doesn't take a lot of money to educate children. You have to be careful, where you spend the money and how. And if you get kids in the early years, they want to keep learning, and you can't stop them from learning. That's where we need to spend most of the money. We also need to, attract the jobs and small businesses. We need a good balance of businesses, both small businesses and industry, and aerospace would be nice. My husband, once upon a time when I was married, my husband worked for a NASA contractor, and science has always fascinated me. The nice thing about being libertarian is that you're neither Democrat or Republican. You've got kind of the best of both. We work for civil liberties and freedoms, as well as fiscal responsibility. And yes, I've run before a couple of times. We're not really politicians until we win. So thank you for having me, and we can get on. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for those remarks. We're going to start the question and answer session now, and as I said, we're going to go alphabetically, so Edward Ablisser is going to be first, as always. And the first question, this actually is a question that came from a couple of different people, and I'm cobbling it together into one. Obviously, it's something people are interested in here. The state courts have determined that the legislature has shortchanged our public schools $316 million. How is the state going to pay back that money, and how quickly will that happen?
Wow, I mean, we've had the money. We've had the money in the past, and the lack of leadership by the Republican Senate and House really blew it for the state. When you think about the rainy day fund, what we had reserved for education, and the jobs package, quote unquote jobs package, which was a boondoggle to big companies in the form of tax giveaways. What we saw from the Republican-led House and Senate is that they turned around, took all that money that was sitting in our coffers, rather than investing in education, they took it and just sent it to these big corporations, APS, SRP, some of the largest ones in this state, to give them tax credits that they didn't need. They're doing great. These companies are rising high in the Fortune 500 world, and they don't need any more help. But what we saw was a change of values in this state. So where are we placed today? We have new revenues coming in. The state treasurer's office has told us that we are in a good situation, and that we'll be able to meet some of the mandates by the courts. What I would encourage, and something that the Democrats have proposed time and time again, is to repeal this tax giveaways to the big corporations, and your money is there. We could do it in a heartbeat, and it's something that the Democrats have pushed forth every time. Just repeal those tax giveaways to these large corporations, and then finally we can invest in our children in Arizona for once and for all. We aren't going to be last place in per pupil spending like we've been for the past 20 years, it seems like. Thank you.
Thank you. Dale Eames.
Yes. Well, obviously, if you're on a budget shortage, you need to increase revenues, and you also need to cut back in certain areas. You can't, it's not just one size fits all. You have to do both in an even middle of the ground way to go. The Republicans, they just want to cut everything. The Democrats tend to want to spend more money, but what we can do to find ways to do this is for instance, in the Department of Real Estate 5 years ago, the budget was over $5 million. When revenue started decreasing, they cut that budget to just over $2 million. The new commissioner came in, and being a real estate broker, it's like going into the DMV. You would go in, you would get the number, you would wait in line just to change your address, and you'd pay $20 to do it every single time. The new commissioner came in from the private industry. They weren't a bureaucrat. They had new ideas. They came in, redid the entire system. So now it's all automated. You can do it online. It doesn't cost you $20. And she did it with less than half of the previous budget. There is government waste in all areas. And to make it work, we have to cut out the government waste, but then we also have to increase jobs. And the way to do that is to make less regulation so it's easier to create jobs and bring in more revenue to the state.
Let's ask the same question of our House candidates. Juan Mendez.
Thank you. And again, I guess just wanted to frame the question. So we're talking about the $316 million that we saw accumulate in simple inflation funding. So this was money investment that we knew should have been going to the schools that I believe we stopped giving back in 2010 or 2011. So this is not a question of some kind of hard economic situation with a lot of math. This is a question of political will. We keep electing people to office who refuse to invest in public education, in something as simple as inflation funding, funding that we knew was going to be going up, that we decided not to invest in. My answers are going to be similar to our Senator Abelser. We have the investment right now to invest in schools the way we should have been doing if we look into the rainy day fund. But we also can pull back on all the gifts and waste that we award corporations in tax incentives. The idea that we have a minimum occupancy rate for our private prisons is ridiculous. And just this last session, we gave away, I want to say, over $67 million to the insurance corporations. We've already attracted enough of them to move to Arizona. Lowering our taxes will not attract any more, and that is money right there that we could use to invest in schools.
Okay, thank you. James Roy.
You know, I think it's interesting. It's easy for us to say just fund it, but we don't have an unlimited source of money. Access has grown by 5% out of the overall budget pot over the last 10 years. And concomitantly, it has also squeezed out 5% out of education. Adjustments need to be made on the conditions we have. During the last, when we had the recession, we had shortages of revenue. So adjustments have to be made. But 49% of the general fund goes to education. Over the last 10 years, we have decreased the amount of money going to classrooms, even though we have increased funding. Between 2004 and 2007, we added $818 million to the education. $200 million was just added on this last budget. That's over $1 billion that has been added over the last 10 years. So we need to spend wisely. We need to make sure that more of the education dollars actually goes to the classrooms. We're increasing our spending to education, but we're not increasing the amount that goes to the classrooms. So we need to make some adjustments. But education is a top priority, and it is a constitutionally mandated funding that needs to take place.
Andrew Sherwood, same question.
Leon, could you repeat the question for me?
The state courts have determined that the legislature has shortchanged our public schools $316 million. How is the state going to pay back the money it owes education, and how quickly will that happen?
Okay, so a couple of things going on here. Number one, we already have a budget problem that we need to be working on taking very seriously. We're going to be in the red by $300 million. Should we fund education? Absolutely. Is this a worthwhile investment? Absolutely. My suspicion is that the legislature, the Republican majority, will absolutely not want to go in and fund inflation funding. They don't even want to fund what's already mandated to fund for education right now. This is unfortunate because this is one of the best places that we can spend money. So what do we do about this? I'm a member of the Appropriations Committee, and I've been in a lot of the back rooms where they're chopping up the feed bill and the budget reconciliation burbs, and I've seen how they do it, a lot of this stuff. And part of it is getting ahead of the pitch. Part of it is making sure that you have a voice in the room long before the negotiations take place, advocating that this is a priority to us, that this needs to be done. My friend and seatmate Representative Mendez earlier talked about political will. I think what the legislature is lacking is actually political courage to go in and do what needs to be done and take something important back to the voters. When you knock on doors and say, what's important to you politically, they might say anything. But if you say, what would make your life better? The answer every time is more money in my pocket and better education for my kids. So we have to go into the Ways and Means Committee and talk about revenue. We can adjust the tax code, we can go in and close loopholes, we can broaden the base. There's a variety of options for us to look at, but step one is make sure that you get ahead of the pitch and choose education as your priority, including this decision that was handed down.
Okay, and Chris Will.
Hi. Yeah, this is important to me. I've got 2 grandkids in school. It's pretty much been covered. We need to streamline the regulations for small businesses so they can thrive and pay more taxes into the system to raise funds, and raising the minimum wage, even just a little bit, can help people afford their living situations and home taxes, so they can pay home taxes and we can raise more funds that way. We need to cut waste in the whole system. And if we're going to offer tax incentives for businesses, big businesses to come here, don't offer it to businesses that don't need it. Find some other way to encourage them to come. But if you're going to offer tax incentives, make it mandatory that they spend their savings and spend their money here for us. In the meantime, just keep working towards okay, yes, we all get nervous. My minute's up.
All right, then, we'll go on to the next question, and we're going to start this question for Dale Eames. Who are the people and organizations that endorse or support you, and why is your affiliation with those people or organizations important to you and to District 26?
Well, as an independent, I had to get like 5 times as many signatures if I was a member of any party. And I decided to run 12 days before the actual deadline to run. And so in those 12 days, I had no money. I spent 0 money. And I was able to get about 50 people to help me go get signatures. And I was able to get about 1,820 signatures. So the people that actually endorse me, they're my neighbors. I have the Sanchez's next door. I've got the Conovers. I've got the Joneses. I've got regular people who endorse me. I don't want endorsements from large organizations because I don't represent them. I represent people. And that's who I care about. I'm not going for big money. I mean, if anybody have seen any of my signs out there, they're all homemade. They're all done by volunteers. I spent maybe $3,000 total, or just over $3,000. But I'm out there because I'm passionate about what I do. I think that we can bring more jobs here to Arizona by making it more job friendly and less regulation and more freedom for ourselves. And that's, my neighbors are who endorse me.
Okay, Juan Mendez, same question.
I'm sorry, who's our supporters and why are they important to us?
The question is, who are the people and organizations that endorse or support us? and why is your affiliation with them important to you and your district?
Awesome. Okay, so my biggest supporters and the reason they're the most important to me is because I'm a clean elections candidate. So I refuse to take any money from lobbyists or unions to run my campaign, and so I rely on the traditional grassroots campaign, and they have turned out for me since before I've been running for office. I've been able to rely on them, but even today, they've stacked the room. The room is mostly made up of residents from our district who represent our party and the District 26 Democrats. And I go to them to help me reach out to voters, to help me where I get to test out my ideas in front of a small crowd. And so without them, I wouldn't be doing any of this work at all. Without them, our district would still be represented by Republicans. Our district would still have a voter registration disadvantage. And so it's because of them that we live in such a progressive district. And then after them, I rely on organizations because of their stakeholders. They help me reach so many of my constituents in a way that I wouldn't be able to. Sometimes our party labels do get in the way, and so it is great to be able to turn to the registered nurses and their constituents, because they've endorsed me. The firefighters have endorsed me, Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood. I know a lot of the unions, and they help me reach our constituents, and so that's why they're important to the democratic process.
James Roy.
The people who support me came out in support after I decided to run. I did not want to run. I had been fighting it. I have been, for the past 2 to 3 years, I've had close friends try to get me to run because they know of my my love for this country and for the constitutional founding fathers and just in preserving those freedoms. And I was on my way home one night, and I was listening to a talk radio show, and they were talking about the types of candidates that they need in office, and the host said, what we need are people that have passion. And then it clicked, like the light bulb turned on. I thought, okay, fine, I'll run. And after I announced that I was running, I started getting support. I got a phone call saying that you are an answer to prayers, and all these people that are wanting to preserve freedom are coming out of the woodworks and coming to help me. And that's what I'm trying to do. I want to preserve our God-given freedoms. The Bill of Rights is not a declaration, does not give us our freedoms. All it is a guarantee of the freedoms that God has already given us. And that's what I'm wanting to help prevent, or to protect and prevent the federal overreach of government who is starting to erode those rights. So those are my supporters.
Andrew Sherwood.
I have some fantastic organizations and men and women who've chosen to support my campaign. Organizations like the Arizona Tech Council, a variety of different organizations for law enforcement, peace officers, correctional officers, firefighters, police department, Planned Parenthood, and the Tempe Chamber of Commerce, just to name a few. What means the most to me about these endorsements and their support is that almost every single one of them endorsed me for the campaign run 2 years ago when I won. And I think that the first time when they're putting their weight and their support behind you, they're putting it behind your ideas and your platform. But the second time, if they circle back and do it again, then that means that they actually are now endorsing your performance to that elected capacity. And so it's a different type of endorsement. And so when you pick it up the second time, to me, it actually means a lot more that they feel that I've been worthy of this office. And so we're gonna go back and do it again. All of them, when I meet with them, when I visit, when I answer their questionnaires, I make myself available for FaceTime. I give them my cell phone number. And as we go through session, we talk regularly to make sure that we can run amendments on bills, to make sure that I can explain certain things that are happening, again, to help them get ahead of the pitch. That's a lot of the game down at the legislature. And then to make sure that everybody wins. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that everyone can get into the middle class. That's my compass. That's where we're going. And a lot of these organizations, they feel the exact same way about it. They've got a lot of talented men and women in their ranks. And so I like working with these organizations again, and I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to pick up, I would like support from everybody, regardless of your political affiliation or where you work or what you like to do. This is a campaign for everybody.
Okay. Chris Will.
Yeah, my supporters are my friends, my family, my neighbors, my party, the Libertarian Party. I'm running on the $500 exemption, which means I've agreed not to spend more than $500 to run. I can always change that if I want to. It makes things a little more challenging, but it makes it possible for anybody to run. And I've determined to stay there so that I can set an example and encourage really anybody who wants to even try to see if this is an option for them. And really, it's working. Anybody can. And it's amazing how many people hear about you just filling out all of the surveys and going to everything you can possibly get to, the SRP picnic and all of that. I also don't take any money from lobbyists. With a $500 top budget, that would be kind of silly. But yeah, I've hardly spent anything this time. I turn to friends for ideas and to bounce ideas off of them, conversations, so I don't end up sounding like a complete idiot. I'm still battling being terribly shy, so I'm getting there, getting better. And in the 2000 campaign, I use my own home phone number. Anybody can call me at any time. Last time around, a student was doing her due diligence and calling to find out what I felt about things. She was horrified that it was 11 o'clock, it was my home phone, and she wasn't going to be able to just leave a message and have me call her back. And we talked for about an hour. So thank you.
And finally, for the first time, alphabetically the last time, Edward Ablisser.
Right. This question, I think, is a powerful one because it shows what inspires us as individuals to do anything. I mean, we're up here putting our necks on the line in front of all of you for judgment and praise, but the reality is we differ on so many different things, and we're inspired by the people that are around us. Daily, I'm inspired by the families, the children, the marriages that I work with in homes and communities all across Arizona. I've run my own mental health counseling company for the past 8 years. Driving to people's homes and doing in-home counseling, working with little kids, working with families, working with parents that are living paycheck to paycheck. And those inspirations are the ones that drive me. Most of these individuals don't live in my district, but almost all of them tend to stay engaged somehow in my life and following me and encouraging me through the advocacy I do, whether it's CPS reform, which is one of the biggest things to confront this state, and no one gives it enough energy or time. This is something that I spent hours at the Capitol, almost sleeping at my office, because we were this close to getting some amazing reform done in this state to truly protect families from sometimes the onerous methods that the CPS workers tended to do, as well as protecting children who are victims of egregious abuse within their home from the people that they love and trust the most. Those are the ones that inspire me. Those are the ones that get me excited about going down to the Capitol every day to try to seek out changes. You know, I appreciate the support from police officers, from the firefighters, from the teachers' unions, from the nurses, from many Tempe small businesses who I've gotten to know, and Mesa businesses, and Salt River, Pima, Maricopa Indian community. I work very closely with so many of these civic leaders, and their support means so much to me. Social workers, the faith leaders. I'm working with the Islamic community currently on an issue of prejudice that's happening to them. So to me, I always go back to the families that I work with and the needs that they have that inspire me to keep doing my job.
Thank you. For the next set of questions, we're going to start with Juan Mendez. And we have a couple of questions on specific legislation and whether you would support it. So the question is, would you support a stronger, more comprehensive set of animal protection laws?
So it's an issue that I have not spent enough time researching, but I do know that the kinds of people that will violate animals' rights tend to find themselves on other lists, and so this is something that needs to be investigated. Do we need another registry of violators? That's something I would have to talk to stakeholders about before I made a decision right now. But I do, personally believe that I don't even have the words for how awful it is for somebody to violate an animal. So I'm against that, and I support the humane societies and all of their effort around this issue. But before taking any kind of direct action on the issue, I would need to learn more.
James Roy.
We have 2 dogs that are both rescue dogs. And I think that some of the things that goes on is horrid. I know that Andrew here has put forth legislation to, I think it was repeat offenders registry, which I think is a great idea. I think that we need to protect these little creatures that can't protect themselves. And I don't know much about what laws are already on the books, but I would be open to looking at things like that, legislation to protect, especially if it keeps happening again.
Andrew Sherwood.
So my short answer is yes, I would run legislation to help protect our furry critter friends. And I've done it in the past. This is important. It's very sad that we've actually seen incidents that have become very sensationalized by the media. There's an event called Gilbert 23, which happened not too long ago right here in our own backyards. And this is an opportunity for us to talk about what's happening for our family members who can't speak for themselves and who don't have the ability to tell the legislature most of the time what's happening and what they need. And what this does for us is this helps remind us of something that's decent, something that's worth fighting for. And the bill that I ran with my friend Senator Steve Farley would create a registry for animal abusers. There's legislation in every state to tackle some of these concerns, and we should do it. Unfortunately, we couldn't move our bill through the Republican majority of the legislature. It deeply upsets me that we haven't been able to do that, because this is one of those issues that if you talked to any casual voter on the street, they'd probably tell you that they would support this concept. It's not very often that you meet people who feel like you shouldn't be doing this, and if they were opposed to it, my suspicion would be it would only be because they might suspect that it would be your opportunity cost, because they would prefer you to focus on something like jobs or the economy or education. But the good thing is we have the ability to focus on all of these things. We can juggle a lot of ideas. There's a lot of good talent down there. And so again, the answer is yes. I've run those bills in the past. Yes, I'm working right now, and I have been since the event in Gilbert, to build a broad coalition to tackle that first thing. We've already had stakeholder meetings, and yes, it's going to move forward in the next session.
And Chris Will.
Yeah, like Andrew, the short answer is yes, absolutely. All of my animals are rescues, and I've got friends who operate a horse and larger animal rescue. A registry, of course, that's going to take a little more money, and may or may not be really the answer. I think one of the keys is education comes in here. A lot of people think, oh, it's cute, I want that kitten, and they don't understand what it takes to keep an animal, even a small Chihuahua or cute little kitty, or they get bunnies for Easter. And then they find out that it's not quite, it's a responsibility. They have to brush them, they have to feed them every single day, they have to walk them, and each kind of animal has its challenges. And then people in this economy too, people who've been absolutely responsible with their animals suddenly find themselves facing downsizing from a house to an apartment, and they don't always understand that, that they do understand what it takes to keep an animal. They don't always understand that dogs and cats can't just be let go. They can't fend for themselves. So it's kind of, I think I would push more for education before going to a registry, and I think that would go a long way into helping reduce the problem.
Okay. Edward Ablisser.
Thanks, and thanks for whoever asked that question. I have been a longtime supporter of doing whatever we can to intervene when there's significant animal abuse and cruelty existing in this state. From Prop 200, and many of you know that we passed one of the most significant pieces of legislation. The voters passed this, and I worked on the initiative. I worked on the referendum. I worked on actually bills that we tried to push forth through the legislature that didn't get anywhere. But the citizens passed a bill that said, yes, we have animal husbandry that has cow or sows here in Arizona. These Pigs for Farmer John, one of the largest pig farm in the western states, and we passed a bill that says that you have to create a crate that allows them to at least turn around or bend so that they can not stand. Most of these sows are so cramped into their crates that they couldn't even sit. They couldn't even bend their legs, that they'd be resting up against the crates and would die of extremely brutal deaths. But that was overwhelmingly agreed to by citizens. People understand this. I worked individually going out to Hickman Farms, working with their chicken farm, and one of the best operations in the state. What a family farmer here in our own backyard. And he's changed his A-frames to actually allow it so that their chickens are more accessible to do a natural activity like extending their wings. But let's talk about some of the blatant abuses, dogfighting, cockfighting. I worked on bills, I was co-sponsor of these bills to pass legislation to prohibit those things and go after extreme abusers, which we are doing. Increased punishment to violent abusers of animals. In my field, we know psychologically, if you have someone who abuses animals, they don't end there. They're usually doing some really drastic and other disgusting things to other parts of our community. So we need to intervene now and take it seriously and make sure that those individuals don't extend their abuse to other parts of our society.
Dale Eames.
Well, we definitely need to take care of animals. As human beings, we are the dominant species here on the planet, and we have a responsibility to take care and do husbandry for all the animals out there. And we need legislation to do that. And where some of our current incumbents have failed to get that stuff like that done, as an independent, I'm not stuck to any party where I can go through and I can get things done. And I will listen to anyone that wants to talk to me. And I will look at everyone's points of view to push through things that will benefit everyone and benefit the animals. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for our next question, we're going to start with James Roy. And the question is, it's two-part. Are you concerned with the role lobbyists play at the legislature, and would you support a gift and meal ban from lobbyists to legislators?
I think lobbyists are helpful for information purposes only. And personally, I would never accept a gift from a lobbyist, no matter how big or small it is. As far as, what was the second part of that question?
Would you support a gift and meal ban from lobbyists to legislators?
I would have to see what else is in the bill, what else is the verbiage, but by principle, yeah, I would.
Andrew Sherwood.
So lobbyists have an interesting role in the legislature. They have a tremendous amount of influence at what is happening in your capital. Because of what's happened with term limits here in Arizona and a variety of other states, what you have, it's institutional wisdom, is building on the sides of lobbyists. because the average lawmaker is putting in anywhere from 2 years to 8 years. A really senior statesman would put in a full 10. Meanwhile, you're seeing lobbyists who put in 20, 30, 40 more years in lobbying the legislature. And so what I imagine for them is that when they see a new freshman class come in every 2 years, they think it's just the same exact game but with different faces. What you really want to do to fix this, and yes, I would support a ban on gifts from lobbyists, but you also want to make sure that you have competitive districts so that you have the best possible candidates in 30 legislative districts. It's not a coincidence that districts that are more competitive consistently produce higher quality elected officials. And coincidentally, those districts have candidates and elected officials that are less influenced by lobbyists. They're not so interested in playing the game for their own ends. They're more interested in being a quality voice and elected official for the people. So, to get back to the point here, what do we do about this? Those bills have been run before, and they're not being passed. Would I support one? Absolutely. Let's call it to a vote. Let's throw in a Democratic majority, because the Republican majority that's had control of that Capitol building for quite a while now hasn't done it. And they're not talking about doing it anytime soon.
Thank you. Chris Will.
Okay, yeah, we definitely need to look at restrictions. Banning these, at the very least, support full disclosure on the part of legislators. So we know what's, what they have taken, what they haven't. So a ban would be nice. Now, a lot of times, a lot of us have looked at lobbyists as a necessary evil, because they say they're just trying to get their ideas across. They're trying to get their message through. And yeah, that's in theory a good thing. But when it looks like they're buying our votes away from us as voters, that's a very bad thing. So we need to look at it from both sides. How do we control the lobbyists without cutting off their access with their messages, and how do we make sure that our candidates, our representatives, are working in our best interest?
Okay. Edward Ablisser.
First, I'd like to point out that what I love are our citizen advocates. These are the people that don't get paid a dime. They come down to the legislature, they spend time with us, they talk to us and educate us about their issues that they're passionate about. They give of their own time, their own energy, their own expertise to bring us some information. The one thing that really does bug me, and it's bugged me for the 9 years I've been there, and it was the first bill I decided to run, it's corporate lobbyists. Corporate lobbyists sell out to whoever has the biggest check, and they bring their issue down to the Capitol. And how do they sell their idea? Because their ideas generally don't sell on their own. They sell it with money. And they bring that persuasion, they bring that influence at the Capitol. And Arizona has a history of not merging corporate lobbyists and elected officials positively. When we go back to ASCAM or Alt Fuels, or we look at the Fiestable scandal or Desert Divas, where these members were getting prostitutes to vote on certain bills based on lobbyists. And now recently, ALEC. Everyone knows the American Legislative Exchange Council, this group, this lobbyist, high-paid lobbyist group that comes in, wines and dines legislators left and right, and guess what? They're the ones that co-sponsor their bills. They're the ones that bring these bills forward. They're the ones that push forth these ideas. And there's no proper marriage between lobbyists and legislators. And so that's why, for me, for every year that I've been down there, I've sponsored the lobbyist gift and meal ban in totality. I believe that we should not have any influence by a lobbyist, whether they're good or bad, as long as they're registered, even if they're a citizen lobbyist. We, in our $24,000 a year salary, can afford to buy our own meals and not have to have someone pay for them. And for that matter, some of the gifts that are given out are just ridiculous. And I think that it's time for the Republicans to take this on seriously. Thank you.
Dale Eames.
Yes, we need to get corruption out. We do need to get we need exposure in the political system. I've learned firsthand at how government can be definitely oppressive. Years ago, I was with an investment group where we were trying to develop a neighborhood, and city officials came in and said, you know what, you donate to our specific charity $25,000, we'll get your passed off and through, no problem. But we refused to do that on principle alone. We lost our shirts, we lost everything, and the downturn happened. And years later, that city official ended up getting investigated by the FBI and going to prison. But the natural tendency of man is to go the easy route. We need transparency in our government, because bureaucrats, when they've been there a while, get used to the power and can abuse that power. And that's why I'm running.
Juan Mendez.
Okay, so this might take me a second. I was saving this for my closing statements, but I'm totally going to go into lobbyists right now. So there are all kinds of lobbyists, and I love and hate a lot of them. And there are even lobbyists in the room today, and they are a part of how government works. But what I want to say is that gifts are not the problem. They're pretty much irrelevant to the whole process of what goes on there. And we can ban them all we want. There's already limits on them. And so the problem isn't that it's happening. The problem is that we elect people who want to take advantage of that kind of relationship. Okay, and so that the real situation with lobbyists, or at least from my last 2 years, my experience, is lobbyists have a totally unfair advantage over the public policy process when it comes to whose voice, opinion, and perspective is heard, is echoed, or even presented. Our legislative calendar is rushed or halted at the whims of leadership. We purposefully entertained hundreds of bills at a time with less than 3 days to organize, research positions before voting on multiple bills in multiple committees. And lobbyists get to take advantage of that entire situation. They're paid 3-4 times more than we are. They have entire staffs. The Democratic House Committee or House members share a staff of 10 people. Lobbyists have their own staff. The situation isn't that gifts sway us to vote one way or the other. The situation is they run us on such a crazy calendar that the lobbyists are the only people there to talk to us. And that is a problem. We don't have any time to reach out to stakeholders. We don't have any time to alert the news about what we're doing or to bring anybody else in. So the problem is we're forced to only work with lobbyists. And that is what we need to change.
All right, thank you. Our next question, we're going to start with Andrew Sherwood. A recent report on the state of girls in the U.S. ranks Arizona 47th for overall well-being for girls' development based on a variety of factors. What policies will you enact or support to create an atmosphere where girls can thrive to reach their greatest potential?
One of the things that Arizona is suffering from tremendously is bigger buy-in from other states. The thing that I hear again and again from people who are outside the state of Arizona is, why'd you do it? I'm hearing complaints from 49 other states about SB 1062, about SB 1070. Perception is reality. That is a very common theme that you hear in politics. If you want to help empower anybody here in Arizona, get better representation. Get the extremism out of politics. Make sure that you put in people who will meet with anyone. So if you want to help anybody in Arizona, and I do want to help people in politics because I'm lucky that I got to go to a university. I'm lucky that I'm sitting here on this stage right now. If you want to help anybody in politics, let's make sure we put in people who are going to go to the Capitol and work for everyone. So I think it's important moving forward to get people who are connected on the ground level. We've run campaigns for years and years. I got involved in politics in 2006. When I walked into the Capitol in 2012, I already knew about 30% of people that worked there. So this parlays on the question that came right before this, which is how do you deal with these lobbyists? I feel lucky that I wasn't able to be manipulated by the political machine. and I could keep that compass. And I told you earlier, that compass is to go straight into middle class. So when you want to help any group of people, when you want to help any organization in Arizona, when you want to help move any idea forward, you want to make sure that you have people who have your back and don't have their own political agenda. That's why I originally ran for office, and that's one of the things that I feel fortunate to live in a district with two other people who've done the exact same thing.
Okay. Chris Will.
Can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, a recent report on the state of girls in the U.S. ranks Arizona 47th for overall well-being for a girl's development based on a variety of factors. What policies will you enact or support to create an atmosphere where girls can thrive to reach their greatest potential?
So it sounds like that's a lot kind of directed towards children's welfare too. Supporting families, higher wages, more jobs, daycare. Basically, equality for all children will help girls too. And you know, strengthening our educational system, making sure that encouraging girls to get into the sciences, math and sciences, and give them more choice in their futures. With daycare for the younger ones, we can work on that. It's going to take a little more thought with that, how to work the whole thing out. That's not something that's as easily legislated. It's something that you need. You've got to investigate it with a lot of different areas.
Thank you.
Okay.
Edward Ablisser.
Well, surprise, again, the Republican-led state of Arizona is last in another very important issue, and I think this is important. This is something that we must act in this upcoming legislative session, one, with policy, but two, with our tone. When you have individuals like Russell Pierce, who's probably the most demonized individual in this state, in this area, and his family for that matter, going around talking about women and the subservience and degradation that he creates amongst the environment about women in our society is absolutely ridiculous. And we need people to speak out against this individual. I think everyone on this stage should demand that he loses his job at the county. It's ridiculous that this guy is on the public dole and continues to have a job with his extremely sexist and racist and homophobic comments that he has made throughout his history. But back to what we can actually do policy-wise. We've had Science Foundation Arizona, which is one of the most brilliant organizations that this state had, invested squarely in STEM and science, technology, and mathematics for our young girls so that they don't lag behind in their educational endeavors. I know my daughter, I want her to have the option to become whatever she wants to become, and I don't want her to be held back because of social stereotypes or norms, assuming that a girl cannot do the same job as a boy. And for that matter, at the national level, ENDA is an important thing to stop discrimination for women in the workplace. That's something that I've spoken highly about. I've called our senators, and we've gotten some Republicans on board to stop ENDA or to bring ENDA to the floor and stop discrimination in the workplace. These are things that we have to do. Early childhood development. The brain develops by the age of 3. At 3 years old, your child is already developed with who they're going to become. So at that point, we have to invest in parents and understanding that their girls from 0 to 3 have to have the resources and services to truly bring them
Thank you. I have to interrupt you.
All right,
I had to do it politely, too.
That's
They
great.
told me. I hope that was okay.
I think everyone got it.
Thank you. Dale Eames.
Well, right now, one of the best ways that little girls develop is with their family. When it comes to education, parents are the #1 influence in their lives. And if you look over time, and the way culture is going, the family units are slowly disintegrating. We're seeing more and more divorce. We're seeing more and more families fall apart. And should the government be raising all the children? I don't think that's the government's role to get involved. The government needs to promote more family units, because the family unit is where, for years, that's where we have found societies have stuck together. And my daughter, I help her with her homework every day. She's going to become whatever she wants because she has a loving father and mother that help her in where she wants to go. And society, that's what we need, is family units to get stronger.
Juan Mendez.
Okay, if I could support women and girls with just legislation, I would do it. But the problem and the way that we relate to women and girls is much more of a cultural problem. And so I know things that I'm doing as a legislator and outside of my role as a legislator is building better relationships with our community, with the people that are already trying to support girls and women. So one of our local organizations is the Guts to Be Good, which is in schools trying to do violence prevention before it even starts. There's the Girl Scouts that is trying to set great leadership examples. And then there's the Boys and Girls Clubs, which give our kids environments, better environments to grow up in. And so this is not a situation where the government's trying to raise your children. I don't understand how that would even come up into play, but the idea is to give our children a better environment to grow up in, so they don't have to deal with the pain that so many of our girls and women go through. One thing specifically that I know I'm going to be looking into is modeling a different way to address partner-on-partner violence or sexual violence in our schools. Even here at ASU, what's been coming out in the news is just, I mean, like I almost don't want to hear it, but with something that we have to do about this. And so one of the things that I know I'm going to be trying to changing is this culture around, it's not this idea that women or people have to say no. We have to change this to a culture of yes means yes in terms of sexual violence. So that's what I'm going to be doing.
James Roy.
I come from a family of 5 boys. I have no idea how to help women reach their potential. But I'm sorry?
Same way you help boys reach their potential.
Well, but I don't think it's a legislative issue. I agree with Mr. Eames that the family plays an important role. I think the center of the family is the center of a morally stable society. And one of the things on my campaign is faith, family, and freedom. And good government begins with good families. And so the family has to be the driving force behind the development of men and women. But I don't think it's a legislative issue. I think we can encourage families to take more, parents especially, to take more active roles in their children's lives. But it's a very slippery slope when you start legislating in that area.
Okay, thank you. We have time for one more question, and then we'll have closing statements from everyone. And this question may very well lead into that. And we're going to start with Chris Will. The question is, please identify what you consider to be the most pressing issue in your district and what you can do about it.
Most pressing issue in my district. Well, with 3 universities and one university, two colleges, three colleges, and a bunch of high schools and grade schools. Actually getting good education for our children is probably the most pressing issue, and how to fund it. How to get parents, allow parents to be as involved as they want to be. There's so many of my neighbors are just exhausted at the end of the day, trying to find time to spend with the kids on the homework and go to the, we don't have stay-at-home moms anymore. I was very lucky when my kids were real little. I was able to be a stay-at-home mom. But with early education, it's focusing on getting the kids involved and learning the basics and wanting to learn more and continue. With higher education, it's how do we pay for this without completely mortgaging the rest of our existence? And what can we do about the student loans and this huge bubble crisis that we have right now? So we need a lot of thought into how we can fund schools, how we can help people afford to go to school, and how we can work on dealing with the debt that they already have.
I've got to cut you off now. Edward Ableser.
Well, the number one issue that's really afflicting our district and most of the districts in Arizona is the fact that unemployment still is at a record high, and we're lagging behind in new, well-paying jobs to truly enhance and diversify our economy. And the fact remains that this legislature, that the governor had a proposal with Democrats working together, and the legislature hijacked it. They put forth a jobs package about 6 years ago, which again, these were loopholes and tax credits to large corporations. None of those manifested to a single job in Arizona. So what we got stuck with was a deficit. Meanwhile, the richest CEOs in Arizona got a huge paycheck at the end of the day. What we need to do is partner with Arizona State University. I'm going to hold my breath when I say it, but University of Arizona, NAU. These universities, which are the science hubs of this state, they bring on the new technology, they bring in the new dynamics into this state. Doing public and private partnerships will truly bring in well-wage earners and high-wage earners that can enhance our environment, enhance our economy, and enhance our neighborhoods. The other big thing that we truly need to do to help Arizona bring in good companies is we need to quit shooting ourselves in the foot with Arizona being this reputation of ignorant and backwards thinking individuals. I know here in our state, we're forward, or in this district, we're very forward thinking because we've got the university and we've got a lot of people that care. But legislation like anti-immigrant legislation with 1070, and don't even get us started on 1062 and what that almost did to this state, devastating the future of this state. And then Russell Pierce coming out with these, the former Senate president making comments about women in the way that he did. We all must speak out against people who tarnish the reputation of this state. And that's a big step to bring companies back to the state, bring in well-wage earners.
Dale Eames.
Can you repeat the question real quick?
Please identify what you consider to be the most pressing issue in your district, and what can you do about it?
Well, as an independent, and I'm not accepting corporate money, I'm not accepting clean election money, I'm doing it all on my own with a little bit of money for my family. I'm out knocking doors every day. I'm talking to the voters in the district. And the number one thing that keeps coming back is jobs. Everyone in my neighborhood has either lost a job in the last 5 years, it seems like, or they're currently unemployed. Welfare is going up. And we need that, but we need more jobs, higher paying jobs. We need to create an environment that we can do that, and we need to cut out the corporate welfare. There is too much corruption that is going on in the state legislature, in both the Republican and the Democrat parties, to where they have their friends that they will create legislation that will benefit their pocketbooks. That needs to end. We need to cut those loopholes. We need to bring it back to where the individuals in our districts will have more opportunities. Right now, the state Senate is almost 50-50, where you got Republicans and Democrats. And they both just keep fighting amongst each other, and it seems like they don't get anywhere. And it seems like mostly the Republican-led Senate controls everything. As an independent, I would be someone that could swing the vote, and I would be able to represent my district better than what it's currently being represented. And I thank you.
Juan Mendez.
Thank you. So all of this is connected. I can't point at one thing and give you one answer if it's going to fix the whole all of the problems. So our job situation, the economy, deficits, and education, it's all interplayed. In Arizona, as far as I can remember, we've just been giving away taxes. Tax incentives, tax cuts, as if that's going to attract certain employers, but those are not the kind of people that I want to work for, and those are not the kind of employers that students who are graduating from here hope to get hired with when they graduate from here. So the way that I want to approach this is by investing more in education. And so geographically across the country, jobs are locating around the places that can turn out the most college-educated people. And again, this is because those college-educated people are job multipliers. And so we can accelerate that growth by either producing more graduated, educated people here or actually doing something to attract those people to move here. And again, lower taxes are not what's going to bring those workers here. We could, because an example, especially because of where we are right now, Google wanted to do a partnership with ASU in Tempe a while ago. They straight up told the Chamber of Commerce they did not like our workforce and they were not about to ask their employees to move here and put their kids in our schools. And so if we want to do anything to be attracting these job multipliers, we need to be making our education environment a lot more attractive. And so that is where I'm going to be putting all my effort. Thank you.
James Roy.
I've been asking people in my district what the 3 things are that they think are the most pressing. And although jobs and all these other things that have been mentioned are on the list, there's one thing that is been on every single list, and that's been immigration. Because of the events of today, the porous border that we have, and there are concerns about safety. And there was a CRS report to Congress in 2005 about the 2004 year that stated 1.6 million people were apprehended coming across the border through other places other than the official ports of entry. And of that 1.8 million, 93% were Mexican nationals, and the other 7% were what the Border Patrol calls OTMs, other than Mexicans. And that report stated that 81,000 people were caught coming into the country illegally, and those were just the ones that were caught, that were from other parts of the world. And when you've got ISIS and ISIL that are wanting to do damage on American soil, they know that the southern border is the most porous. And so from a safety standpoint, people are concerned. And that's something that definitely needs to be addressed. We need to have an adult conversation about it. And in addition to jobs and all these other issues that are facing us.
Okay, Andrew Sherwood.
When you talk to anybody in any district, it's always going to be the same answer. It's about, Senator Abelsford's right, it's about jobs, it's about unemployment. But that also is intertwined so much, like Representative Mendez said, about education. When unemployment's hovering around 7%, that number's deceptive, because really the question that you are more preoccupied with is not how many people are unemployed, but how many people are competing for that same exact job you are. And the answer is a lot more than 7%. A lot of people. What's fit for this conversation for us to tackle is what we can do about the education side, because in the legislature, this district is known for being the education district. We have all the usual K through 12 stuff functioning. We have a lot of young men and women who are starting families and having kids here. That's part of how Tempe works. That's part of how this district works. But we also have the for-profit adult education, and we have Arizona State University. So what we need to do is make sure that we fund this. And I say this because I hear again and again in the Republican campaigns that Arizona is #1 in school choice. You should have no idea what that means because that's smoke and mirrors. That's meaningless. This is not #1 in graduation rates. This is not #1 in testing. This is not #1 in teacher career path. This is not #1 in college acceptance and college readiness. It was pointed out earlier that our workforce is not prepared. I was at a forum a couple of weeks ago, and I said, how many people here have a U.S. copyright, a U.S. patent, or an LLC? Very few of them had that yet. But everyone's an inventor. Everyone has ideas. Everyone's thought about what they'd like to do with themselves. And so the way that you do this, the way that you move it forward, and what's appropriate for this conversation is, in fact, education, because education does equal a lot of your ability to maneuver within jobs. How do we do that? Step one, let's start funding. This is the most important thing. And I'm telling you now, you heard it here first. What they're going to do in the next session is they're going to go right back into the education part of the budget, and they're going to try to slash.
I've got to interrupt you now, but as time is up. And time is up for all the questions. And so for the last part of our discussion, we're going to have a 3-minute closing from each of the panelists. And in the interest of fairness and to confuse me, we're going to go exactly backwards in the order, and we're going to start with Chris Will.
Okay. Thank you again for having us. It's very important for us as candidates to have a forum to get our views and your options out there. If I'm elected, I want to look at each issue, each potential legislation with an eye to what will help my constituency retain their personal civil liberties and freedoms, and how can we keep Arizona being fiscally responsible at the same time. We need to look at ways of both creating more jobs. Government doesn't create jobs, businesses do. And how can we encourage businesses of all sorts to come here or form here? Small businesses really are the rock our economy is built on. I've been there, and I grew a successful business. It's exciting, it's wonderful, it's fun, and it's exhausting. A big part of encouraging more businesses to come here is schools. Nobody wants, well, we do have fabulous colleges, and ASU, SCC, eventually I'll graduate from SCC and hopefully go on. But the younger, nobody wants their little kids to go to a school that doesn't do well. We need to focus on all aspects of that. And we also need to decide, do we want to fund schools or do we want to fund prisons? And we want to look at getting rid of some of the private prisons that we are wasting incredible amounts of money on. So I'm hoping that that I'll have your vote this time around. And I'm a grandma, so you can always count on me to listen to you. Thank you.
Andrew Sherwood, please.
I want to thank you all for spending this evening with us. I know I've had a good time being here, and I'm sure that my colleagues here feel the same way. 2 years ago, we ran a campaign on accountability, on ideas, and I think that we delivered a lot of those ideas. I think that we showed up, we were present, and what we got for that is a state that made some progress. We killed off a lot of the bad bills. We moved forward some of the really great bills. We did put some more money back into education. We were able to pass the Medicaid expansion. This is fantastic, but there's still more work to be done. And so the campaign that I'm running, and two of my colleagues on this podium are joining me, is we want to continue to work on education. We want to work on job creation, and we want to make sure that we can oppose the extremism that has hijacked Arizona, sadly, from time to time, because I'm tired about being on podiums talking about Russell Pierce and his comments and sentiments about women or minorities. Let's turn the page on that one. Let's move Arizona forward. This is the education district. It is appropriate to run a campaign here on education. At the beginning of this debate, I told you a little bit about myself and my personal life. And so I want to say, if anybody has further questions, I'm available. You can call me, you can email me. We like to get back to people. We love what we do here. I put a lot of time in this job. I take it very, very seriously. And I'd like to ask for your vote, and I'd like to also ask for your consideration for my two seatmates, Juan Mendez and Ed Ablisser.
Okay, thank you. James Roy.
I also want to thank everybody for coming. I know that there's other things that you could be doing tonight that's more interesting than this, but I appreciate you being here. I appreciate Citizens Clean Elections for hosting this. And like I said in the beginning, I'm not a politician. I'm just a concerned citizen. I think politicians can change their minds based on polls. I'm firm in my principles. I'm just a regular guy that believes in individual freedom. I believe in individual responsibility. I don't believe that it's the government's purview to decide that it wants to redistribute our wealth and take care of us. Although that's an important responsibility, it's an individual responsibility. The government receives its authority from the people, but the people can't delegate authority that it doesn't have. We don't hold the authority to force people to take care of other people, at least not legally. But we continue to ignore the Constitution. We ignore the restrictions on government because we think that it's doing it, the things that it does is because it's compassionate, because it has compassion for us. But compassion is on an individual level, not on a government level. The proper role of government is to protect, not provide. Thomas Jefferson predicted happiness for Americans as long as we can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them. I think it's time that we start reining in our government. We don't have the money to do anything else. So I'm asking for your vote so we can do exactly that. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your time, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Juan Mendez, 3 minutes.
I want to thank you for all your questions. It saved me a lot of time. I wanted to share a lot of grievances that I've had with being in the legislature, but I got to air them all out through your guys' questions, so thank you. One thing that I did want to bring up, or take my time to bring up, is I could get elected in November, but if I got elected alone, I wouldn't be able to accomplish everything that I want to do. And so I need to ask everybody to vote up and down the ballot Democrat to help me. I need more people to build relationships with and more people to work on so many of these issues together. But one thing that I did want to address also that didn't come up in the questions is we all love what we're doing, but right now the legislature offers us $24,000 a year to do what we're doing. And I believe very little people have the ability to profoundly alter their lives and open it up to the demands of politics when we only offer $24,000 a year. Imagine the kind of person who can afford to work for $24 a year and whether you can trust them to see the issues and problems from your perspective. With the full-time nature of the job, rushed into 6 or 7 months, people of very few stations in life can afford the physical, emotional, and tax timing nature of Arizona public office with only $24,000 a year, even if you factor in the 100 days of per diem. Only a few jobs allow for people to work around the legislature. And so I feel like we're not getting a representative legislature because we can't offer a living wage or pay. But I got elected to office by reaching out to voters who didn't identify with the party. And instead of listing off my resume, I communicated my story and what kind of Arizona I wanted to live in. I think if we're going to prosper together, our resiliency needs to be fortified with public investment. Your individual private success, however you want to frame it, was built on public investment and public institutions. We need to source revenue in responsible ways in order to make much-needed investment in infrastructure, education, health, transportation, research, and all sorts of protections. But reach out to me after the debate. We're looking for more people who want to get involved at all different kinds of skill levels. We just need people to help turn out the vote. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dale Eames.
I also would like to thank you to come. I know a lot of people have driven from all the other sides of the district to come to this debate. And this is my first debate that I've been to. As an independent, a lot of people didn't see me in the primaries, and so some people didn't even know I was running. But right now, as an independent, I can be the bridge between the Democrats and the Republicans where we can find common ground and come up with real-world solutions to these problems that we have. Right now, you might see some of my homemade signs out there. I will show up. I will dedicate my time. Right now, my cell phone number's on my website. I'm the only one pretty much in my committee, and I am going door to door to get to know each and every voter that I can contact. Find out what your issues are. I will listen to everybody. I'm open. I don't have to fight between the parties. I don't have to represent the party. I will represent you. And as the Senate is pretty much 50-50 almost, in Democrats and Republicans, I would be the swing vote. So if you, in my district, want representation, I could help and get that representation. And I will show up. Because to build those relationships in the Senate, to get things done, you need to be there. You need to build relationships with the other state representatives. And I will do that 100%. Thank you.
Edward Ablisser.
Well, my family and I absolutely love Tempe. I came out here in '96, went to ASU, and have been a Sun Devil for life. I truly do bleed maroon and gold, and I bled a lot last Thursday when we lost to UCLA. My wife wasn't too happy with that. But we love our community. We love our district. We love Mesa. We love the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. We are active members of our church. We have callings in our Mormon church and serve the little children in the nursery and love that job. And then full-time, I get to go out into people's homes all across my district, working with kids who have IEPs, who have emotional disorders, marriages who are falling apart, trying to bring them together, families who are dealing with substance abuse and all sorts of traumatic issues in the home. And I feel blessed every single day that I get to help as many people as I possibly can. And then I get to go to the Capitol and serve at the Capitol and work diligently. I wish that the Capitol is actually 50-50. It's the furthest thing from 50-50. It's Tea Party, and sometimes they look our way to Democrats. And guess what? This past 2 years, the governor did an amazing thing. She put her nose to the wind on the Tea Party, and she said, okay, Democrats and 3 moderate Republicans come together. And guess what? I got to meet with the governor, with this one moderate Republican, and we scaled a plan to bring Medicaid expansion to this state. It was because of what we did behind the doors, behind the scenes, bringing Medicaid expansion, bringing educational funding to this state, protecting state shared revenues for Tempe, which is so important. Tempe can only grow up, it can't grow out, so we're limiting our state shared revenues. These are the things that we have done over time to truly protect our district from the Tea Party extremism that's truly running the state. And if the governor who's running right now on the Republican side happens to win, he's already promised that 1062 is getting brought back and that the reputation of Arizona is going to continue to be tarnished once again. Other things that we have done since I've been here, we've worked, I look back to my first year on light rail and bringing light rail to this district, and now look at every city wants light rail. Science Foundation Arizona, tuition equalization, the stadium is getting built and changed because of a bill that Republicans and Democrats came together on to really benefit this district. We've advocated for closing tax loopholes for large corporations. That's one of the biggest things we need to do to truly bring revenue back to the state. One thing I will say is the representation that you see at this table, it varies on ideology. I've talked a lot about Russell Pierce, and I know my opponent knows the Pierces, and the Pierces have donated to them. And frankly, I would shun any sort of representation with the Pierce family. I think that type of Tea Party extremism is not what Arizona needs. It's already gotten us in trouble in the first place, and we need to shun him. We need to make sure that he apologizes for his mistakes and turns the tide so that we, true Democratic representation, can lead the state. Thank you. And I also asked to vote for my running mates too.
I want to tell you, it's very easy to stand up here and ask these questions. They're all written down for me. It's extraordinarily difficult to sit over here and answer them. So why don't we give a round of applause to everybody who did that. And I want to thank all of you who took the time to come here and inform yourselves and learn about these candidates before voting. And we encourage you to find out more about the candidates and about the clean elections process by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov, where you will also find a video of this forum within 72 hours. We encourage you to complete the survey you received when you arrived and return it to the registration table. If you did not receive a survey, you can get one back there. And thank you all and good night.